Your top 5 NFL breakout players for the upcoming season.
All right. Well, everyone has their list of breakout players. Everyone has their opinions on who they believe will be the breakout players of this upcoming season based on what happens in the offseason, trades, new guys going to different teams. But I think my 5 guys that I have currently concocted, I think will have great seasons and will be phenomenal in your fantasy if you decide to pick them up. At number 5, I am going Dalton Kincaid on the Buffalo Bills, the tight end. I think the departure of Stephon Diggs opens up who will get a lot of targets on that team, who knows the system well, who does Josh Allen trust, and who can he go to. I think them adding Curtis Samuel, them bringing in Keon Coleman, there's a lot of new additions on that team. It's going to take a little while for them to gel. But one thing that Josh Allen always does every season, the first couple weeks, is target his tight ends. He did it with Dawson Knox for many years. I think Kincaid is a great target for this Buffalo Bills team for him to really do well. I think Dalton Kincaid will have a 1,000-yard season this year, in my opinion. I think he's going to be really well, and I think he's going to be one of the breakout players of this season. At number 4, I'm going, it's probably a little early on my list, I'm going to go Drake London. I believe the arrival of Kirk Cousins is going to create a different dynamic system that the Falcons have been missing for a very long time. We all know they have an abundance of young players, a lot of talent over there in Atlanta. We want to see what that system is going to hold, especially with Kirk Cousins coming from injury. They have Drake London, they have Kyle Pitts, they have Bijan Robinson, and they drafted another receiver in the draft this year. I forgot his name, but they drafted another guy. But there's a lot of talent over there. So I think for me, I think Drake London should be a benefactor of what Kirk Cousins is able to do on that football field, and he should be that number 1 receiving option for Kirk Cousins this season. If I had to give a number, I would have to say close to 1,200 yards if Drake London is healthy. It's going to be a great year for him. At number 3, it's kind of strange, I think, in my opinion, to put this guy as a breakout player because this is only his second season, but we know what he can do. But they're on the same team. It's Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan Robinson has another level to get to. I think he's a top running back in this league, and I think we didn't get to see him enough last year with a lot of strange play. There was games he didn't play. The games he didn't play enough, didn't get enough carries, enough snaps, and Arthur Smith was he was kind of like nonchalant about it. He was just like, just whatever. These like phantom injuries that came about. He wasn't playing the football or enough football at least that we know that Bijan Robinson can play. And I think this year, like I said, with a new coaching regime, we're gonna see a lot of stuff, a lot of players unlocked. And I think Bijan Robinson is gonna be one of them. I think it's gonna help establish Kirk Cousins in a safer pocket with his running game. It's gonna create a lot of havoc for defenses to try to figure out, do you cover the pass attack or do you cover the rushing game? It's gonna be a lot of different angles that the Falcons can play here. And I think Bijan Robinson at number 3 will be suffice. At number 2, I'm going with my boy Garrett Wilson. People say, oh, why do you go Garrett Wilson? He had 1,000 yards each season. Why do you go Garrett Wilson? Because I think this is the first year where he's going to have a quarterback healthy playing. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a healthy year. And I think their offense is going to be unlocked because Garrett Wilson's finally playing with a, drumroll, top 10 quarterback. A guy who could throw the football, a guy who could read the field, a guy who's been here for 20 damn years. I think Garrett Wilson is going to be the breakout player. I think this is a guy who's going to get 1,400 yards this season. I think this is going to be a guy who's going to be deemed one of the top 5 receivers in the league when it's all said and done. I think him and Rodgers' tandem is going to be very similar to what that Devontae Adams and Rodgers tandem was all the way back in Green Bay. So I think Garrett Wilson's going to be a huge, huge breakout year for him at number 2. And at number 1, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this because I don't think guys are ready for what I'm about to say. Daniel Jones.
Oh, my God.
Is going to have a breakout year, the contract year, the year that nobody believes in him, the year that everybody is counting out the New York Giants. Listen, I think Daniel Jones is coming with a different swagger this offseason. I think this is a guy who's been written off by not only the fan base, but also the organization. I think this
also,
is a guy who knows he has a lot.
Too.
What happened?
People on the show, too.
Oh, people on the show as well. I think a lot of people, everyone in the world are out on Daniel Jones completely. And I think the reason being is because guys are counting out the season. These guys are calling the season a bust already. They're done with it. The Giants fans are depleted. The Giants fans are thinking they're going 2-15 this year. I think Daniel Jones, a healthy Daniel Jones, is going to showcase why he got that Giants team to the playoffs. I think he's going to showcase why he's going to be a great player. I'm predicting Daniel Jones to have 30 touchdown passes this season. And I think Daniel Jones is going to have a great year, and he is my number one breakout player for the season. But to recap, I had Dalton Kincaid at number 5. I had Drake London at number 4, right? Bijan Robinson at number 3. Garrett Wilson at number 2, and Daniel Jones as the number 1 breakout player for this season.
Every time Zay spills a hot take on this show, this is how I feel.
You can't keep getting away with it. He can't keep getting away with it. He won't.
I don't know, Zay. I don't know, man.
Hey, I just wanted to say, bro. So you said, I just want to make sure I heard you right. You said you think Daniel Jones is going to have 30 touchdowns this year. Is that what you said?
30 passing touchdowns this season, correct.
You do know that this is 2 seasons ago now. That year, he had a great year. The year that got him paid, wins a playoff game. You realize he only had 15 touchdowns passing 2 years ago. So you think he's going to double that this
Correct.
year? That's a bold one, no doubt.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, listen, I think it's going to happen.
All right. I want to go with mines. Okay. We're getting more comments here. I think Zay woke everybody up with that one. All right. Look, at number 5, I'm going to go defense here. I'm going to go with Christian Gonzalez from the Patriots, cornerback. I was high on him coming out of college last year, but he was limited to 4 games due to injury. But in that time span, he had 3 passes defended, an interception, and he was making plays for the ball. This is a guy that's a shutdown corner, very athletic. And I think, coming from that Bill Belichick coach defense, obviously Bill Belichick is no longer coaching the team, but you got Gerard Mayo, who's supposed to be a Bill Belichick clone. I think it's going to groom him well to be able to be that top corner for this team and one of the best corners probably in the future, based on the year that he's probably going to have this year. And when you look at the schedule, you're talking about right out the gate, you're going up against Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Then you got DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, Debo. But that should only make him better as a football player. There's no fear in going up against these guys, even though one could argue there's a lot to fear. But that will make you better as a cornerback, being able to be tested right out the gate like that, especially coming back from injury. And I think Christian Gonzalez will be one of the best corners in the league. And I believe so because I felt that when he got drafted, and I'm going to harp on that and continue that despite the injury last year that cut his season short. At number 4, I'm going to go with Jameson Williams, wide receiver from the Lions. I'm going to go with him. The start to his NFL career has been murky. Obviously, the ACL injury that he suffered in college, he was a very good player in Alabama, and then he came into the year, rehabbing and stuff like that, and was, eased into the flow of the offense gradually later on in the year, missed a big chunk of that season. There's not much you can really do with him. And then last year, he had the 6-game suspension. So, chemistry is affected with Jared Goff and stuff like that and company. So I think this year with a full offseason program, I expect to see him go off. We all know that Ben Johnson is going to be creative in ways to get him acclimated, get him the ball. They utilize him a lot on jet sweeps. I think he had a touchdown in the playoff game against the Niners off a jet sweep, and I think they're going to expand his route tree and not only be this deep threat that can make plays on the ball downfield. There was a couple sequences last year. I think it was one. The play that we remember him for is the play he made against the Buccaneers when he had that long touchdown catch, or that long catch rather, and where, he set up the Lions to really score. And I think that's his highlight of last year. And I think this year will give us more highlights to look at and be like, okay, he made a big play right there and he didn't drop the ball and Jared Goff hit him down the field. So I like Jameson Williams. I think even though we all know who's the alpha, who's the target volume, who's the target monster, is Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think to have a nice complimentary guy in Jameson Williams could do the Lions very good, and I think it will. I like him at number 4. At number 3, okay, I saw my neighbor earlier today. I wave. What's going on, brother? Malik Nabers. I'm going with him at number 3. Listen, man, it's hard for me to not get hypnotized by these highlights I'm seeing in camp. It's really hard for me not to. And I live with that dilemma because last year around this time, I was seeing Jalen Hyatt and Daniel Jones looking good, and they was showing us a lot of Giants highlights, and I feel like
don't forget Darren Waller.
Yeah, I hope I'm not being catfish here because I was catfish last year with the Giants. Okay, and this year, I hope it's not another catfish situation because listen, Zay, he's the captain of the ship. And, I ain't going down too bad. Okay. If push comes to shove, he going down. What he said about Daniel Jones now. Okay. But I'm going to take Malik Nabers. I'm going to put him at number 3. I think this guy can run a lot of routes. I think he can win downfield. You could get him on the slants. You could get him the ball. Just get him the ball. Daniel Jones, just get this man the ball. Okay. And I think he's really going to elevate the receiving corps of this team. I think when you look at Jalen Hyatt, that's going to allow him to do what he do down the field, primarily as a deep threat speedster. I think it's going to allow things to open up for everybody else. You could have that one guy that could just transform your wide receiving room. And I think Malik Nabers is that dude that's going to be able to do that. I like him at number 3. Okay. Odell Beckham Jr., I don't know who that is. I know who Malik Nabers is. At number 2, salute to Odell Beckham, by the way. But you get my point. Just got to go with the flow. At number 2, I'm going to go with Trey McBride, tied in from the Cardinals. It's funny because he came in last year for Zach Ertz in week 8, and immediately in that same game had a team high 14 targets, converting 10 catches for 95 yards and a score in that game. He immediately made an impact. And this was without Kyler Murray, who didn't come back till the next 2 weeks after that. And then when that happened, he had 53 receptions for 538 yards and 2 scores from that point on. Now, I do think when you draft a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. and his presence, that's going to attract defenders to his side of the field, it's going to allow McBride to take advantage of those slower linebackers and really slice and dice defenders in the middle of that field. I think this guy's going to be the true superstar tight end. I know in fantasy, a lot of people's going to be hovering over Kelsey. Let me get Kelsey. But if you fall back and miss Kelsey and you land on Trey McBride, you're good. Okay, you're good. Trust and believe me, you're good. I think Kyler Murray is going to be poised for an MVP caliber season. And I think Trey McBride is going to be the recipient of that along with Marvin Harrison. But I think specifically I'm going to rank Trey McBride here at number 2. And at number 1, I'm going to go with a quarterback. That's the safest bet to go. I'm going to go with AR-15. Look, I ranked him 22 on my quarterback rankings. So you could say I got trigger shy, which I could admit to. But the athleticism, the ability is there. Okay. And what I would like to see this year, and what I think I will see this year, is Shane Steichen tapping into that. Okay. Because last year, I believe he averaged under 6.7 yards or 9 yards per attempt. This guy got a cannon. What are you, Joe Lombardi? Okay, no. You got to throw the ball down the field, okay? Allow him to tap into that potential. And I do trust Shane Steichen. I know he's not Joe Lombardi. Okay, he's actually throwing the party. He's one of the best coordinators in the NFL, period. Almost got Gardner Minshew to the daggone playoffs, okay? I do believe that what he did with Jalen Hurts should be the model for what he should do with AR-15. Let's not forget, Jalen Hurts was traded for Russell Wilson. The trade didn't go through because Wilson nixed that. We cannot forget about that. But what Shane Steichen did with Hurts' career is what I expect him to do with AR-15, which is having him blossom and take over the league. And I'm going to go with him at number 1. So to recap my list, at number 5, I'm going to go with who I had at number 5. Christian Gonzalez, cornerback of the Patriots. At number 4, I'm going to go with Jameson Williams, wide receiver of the Lions. At number 3, I'm going to go with Malik Nabers, wide receiver for the Giants. At number 2, I'm going to go with Trey McBride, tied in from the Cardinals. And at number 1, I'm going to go with the one and only AR-15, quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. Zach, the mic is yours.
All right, guys. Two pretty good lists so far. I have some similar names to both you guys. I'll say, Lil, I'll give you credit. I wanted to put a defensive player on mine. I just couldn't really come up with a guy that really stuck out. So I went with 5 offensive guys, but I think Gonzalez was a very good choice. You know, he only played in a handful of games last year, but from what you saw, man, that kid looked like the real deal. So I think he's going to be among the best corners in the league sooner rather than later. At number 5, I'm going to go with the guy that hasn't popped up yet. This is actually a guy coming to a new team. I'm actually going to go with Zach Moss, running back for the Bengals. I think that this guy is the real deal. You know, I remember when the Bills drafted him, I wasn't too impressed. I didn't think much of it. And then I remember going into last year when, you know, the Colts got the situation with Jonathan Taylor taken care of, but JT missed the first couple games, and this kid, Zach Moss, stuck in right away, and he popped to me. I thought he was super impressive. I thought that he was even better than Taylor, honestly. And I've been vocal about this on the show throughout the offseason, but I think the Bengals are upgrading at running back, going from Joe Mixon to Zach Moss. I think this kid Moss has some real juice. I think that he's going to take the every down back position by storm. I know Chase Brown had some moments last year, and he's going to be a solid change of pace, a second option. But I think this guy, Zach Moss, is in for a big year. I think he's the real deal. I'll have him at number 5, and I think he's going to be a new weapon that really helps this Bengals offense on the ground. At number 4, Lil mentioned him. I'm on the same boat. I'm going to go with Jameson Williams of the Lions. It's interesting with him. You know, Will really said it. His career hasn't gotten off to the greatest start. This is easily a pick that could blow up in my face, both of our faces. And this was really the one selection I felt the least confident about. But it really told me something, that when you look at this Lions team, first of all, they're loaded. They have so much high-end talent, and I think they're in for a huge year. But the one position you could look at and say, like, okay, maybe that's a little bit of a concern, is the wide receiver 2 position behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. And it was a no-brainer for them to move on from Josh Reynolds after what happened in the NFC Championship game. You could literally make the argument that his drop cost them that game, and they had to get him out of there. All the bad vibes from that game would have been remembered if he was back. And look, I think Brad Holmes is one of the best GMs in the league. I'll flat out say it. Like, the way he's built this roster, his decision to take Jared Goff in the trade for Matthew Stafford over Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is the most underrated transaction in the NFL the past 5 years that no one talks about. The fact that he nailed that decision, which really could open a championship window for this Lions team. And the fact that he said, you know what? Nah, we believe in Jameson Williams. We think this guy is still good enough to be the WR2 for this team that legitimately has Super Bowl aspirations. I have no choice but to trust him. He's been flashing in training camp. I think he's in for a breakout year. I will have him at number 4. At number 3, I'm going to have another guy Lil brought up. I thought he made some good points. You got to go with Trey McBride of the Cardinals at number 3. This is another guy that really popped for me. And last year, in his last 8 games, this guy averaged 6 catches a game, 67 yards, scored 2 touchdowns. I was honestly surprised about that touchdown number. I thought it was way higher, but I think this guy, with Kyler, with Marvin Harrison in that offense, he's in for a breakout year. He's the real deal. And it's funny with the tight end position as a whole. I feel like we just had such a long stretch of you had Gronk, you had Travis Kelce, but really after those 2 guys, you know, Jimmy Graham had a nice run a couple of years ago, but that position has kind of been pretty weak, honestly. There just hasn't really been a lot of great tight ends outside of, you know, Gronk and Kelce. But I look at the position now, and you have a guy like McBride. You have a kid like Sam Laporta in Detroit. You have Njoku. Yeah, we'll see if Kincaid comes on. I feel like the tight end position in general is just going through a little bit of a rebirth. So that's cool to see. But I think McBride, right up there with Laporta. I think Laporta is a guy you could categorize as someone who broke out last year. So I'll go with the other option at tight end. I will have McBride at number 3. At number 2, I'm going to go with another guy Lil mentioned. I'll keep the trend going. I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson of the Colts at number 2. I said this when I brought him up on my quarterback list. I had him at number 16, so I was even higher than Lil with him. But I just thought last year I was nervous that this guy was not going to be ready to play in the NFL. And I thought starting him right away maybe could hurt his development. But I underestimated Shane Steichen and just how good he is. I thought Richardson looked much more NFL ready than I could have ever expected in the 4 games he played last year. And I like the fact that when, like, Shane Steichen was asked, or Richardson, one of the two was asked at the beginning of training camp about, you know, look, Anthony Richardson, he's been banged up. He's only been in the league for a year plus now, but injuries have kind of been a concern. And basically the question was, is that going to affect the amount of times you run the football with him? Like, are you going to hold the running game back? And I believe Steichen said, no, like that's our bread and butter. Like, we're going to feature it. And I love that answer, because when you draft a guy like Anthony Richardson, you're drafting him because of the athletic upside. You're drafting him because you know he could be an absolute tank running the ball. And I just think when I look at this Colt team, they have the ultimate wild card, like the ultimate sleeper written all over them. If Richardson could stay healthy, you have Jonathan Taylor. They extended Michael Pittman. Now I'm worried about Josh Downs. That's a guy that I'm really he suffered an injury in training camp the other day, and he is a big reason why like I was pretty high on this Colt team. I think they need him to be healthy. I don't think they have a ton of depth behind him. I think defense is also kind of a worry for the Colts, especially in the secondary. But Anthony Richardson, there's a lot to be excited about with him. I will have him at number 2. And at number 1, I'm going to go with a guy that hasn't popped on either of you guys' lists yet. And I think this is kind of similar to Zay with Bijan Robinson. Like, you could make the case that this guy is already broken out, but I think that this year is about to be his best year. I'm going to go with Breece Hall as my number 1 breakout player. And for me, Lil, I remember last year when Hall came up and we were talking about running backs coming off a torn ACL and how historically Saquon Barkley is one guy that comes to mind. Like, historically, running backs in their first season coming off a torn ACL, they're not very good. They're usually a shell of themselves. And that makes sense. You got to regain everything, that explosiveness, that burst. And I just remember saying on this show, like, Breece Hall isn't Adrian Peterson. There's no way that he's going to be able to put together a big-time season, and he did. This guy last year looked like one of the best running backs in the league, and I think the second season, coming off a torn ACL, playing behind a much-improved offensive line, I think there's a real chance this guy leads the league in rushing. I think there's a real chance this guy establishes himself as one of, if not the best running back in the entire NFL, and I just think he's a huge weapon for the Jets, playing alongside Aaron Rodgers. I will have him at number 1. So to recap my list, I will go with Zach Moss of the Bengals at number 5, Jamison Williams of the Lions at number 4, Trey McBride of the Cardinals at number 3, Anthony Richardson of the Colts at number 2, and finally we wrapped up with Breece Hall of the New York Jets at number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything was solid. You know, the only point that I really just got to add, and then, you know, we could possibly move on, is you know, in regards to the Jets and Breece Hall, you know, one of the reasons why I didn't put Breece Hall is because of that, what you talked about. Like, I thought he broke out already, but I could respect it because obviously he should be healthy this year, and he should be able to make a impact again and do it even better than he did his rookie year, because he never really played a full year like consistent, because of obviously when he got the keys and then coming back from injury. So I think this year could be another year where he just dominates, but for a longer period of time. But I think also on the Jets specifically, there was one guy that I had on the same team that was an honorable mention, and that was the offensive lineman Elijah Vera Tucker. I think he has a golden opportunity with a spotty line that's trying to be reborn and rebuilt. He's the best player to me on that line. And I think he can move some defensive linemen around and could, try to transform and be a good spot in a situation where it may not be the Jets' biggest strength, but he could be that bright spot. So that would have been a guy that I would have looked upon at the Jets, talking about them. But that's all I got to say.
I think AVT is great. I just don't think he's better than Tyrone Smith right now. And just in terms of like their careers, I think Tyrone Smith just has the track record of just being an elite lineman. I think AVT is great. The issue with him is the fact that the Jets keep trying to put him at tackle and guard and tackle and guard. We haven't seen a full season or a big enough sample size to see what he can be at one position for a full season. So hopefully healthy all year. If he's healthy all year,
talent is there. I'm banking on the talent, but I agree.
He just has to stay healthy.
Yeah,
That's
stay
the
healthy.
bottom line. When he's on the field, he's that good.
Correct.
All right. Any last points? We'll be ready to.
I'm just saying, bro, Jamison Williams better not bite me in the ass. Like, I was hesitant to put him on this list. Like, I understand he had that one touchdown in the NFC Championship game, which looked really good, and he's had this great camp. But, bro, like, this is your opportunity. You're literally the number 2 wide receiver for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. You're the 4th option. That's the other thing. Like, the attention shouldn't be on him, which is rare for a guy that's a former top 10 pick coming out of Alabama. But you look at the Lions offense, St. Brown will get more attention. Gibbs will get more attention. Laporta will probably get more attention. You're the fourth option. You're in such a great situation. Take advantage of it, or else you will never appear on this list again.
No, I agree 1,000%. You know, we're banking on a guy that has messed up since he came to the NFL, and we see the talent, and we just want to bank on some upside. So hopefully he doesn't let us down.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. We've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, or leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.